Sunday, everyone. Early afternoon here in Singapore, and I've got a great topic that I wanted to talk about this week. This topic, I think everyone will have their own experience of this, and as I go through, if you have any questions, just post your comments below or ask any questions as we go along. But today, what I'm really talking about is the idea that actually what we do is we outsource our health. So the idea that us as individuals, when we have a health issue or a concern about something to do with our health, that we expect somebody else, usually a doctor, but it could be any other health professional, for example, your personal trainer, but we expect somebody else to be able to diagnose our health issue for us. And on the surface, that makes a lot of sense because even as a coach, I always guide that if we had all the answers ourselves, we would have done it already, right? We would have got the results that we're looking for already. So it's always good to go to an expert in the field to get the best result in anything that you want to have success in. But when it comes to health, it's an interesting one because outsourcing our health conjures up some really interesting questions, I think, and that's really what I want to talk about today. So the scenario that I find, and I'll explain it in two shares that I can give. So I have my own experience and an experience I had recently. So I had an experience recently where somebody came to me and their father was actually diagnosed with cancer. And they'd gone to a doctor and the doctor had said that looking at all the results and everything that he'd shared, there was clearly some issues around his nutrition, and it was linked to him eating a lot of meat, particularly red meat, and this had led to colon cancer. And the person who came to me was sharing how the doctor had, gone on to explain some of the things that they need to do dietary-wise, like removing red meat from the diet for a few months, and that it would be safe to eat maybe fish. And some drugs and some even chemotherapy that her father needed. And they asked a lot of questions around it. One of the questions were, does he have to stay off red meat for life? And the doctor actually had said, no, I think he can come off the red meat just for the time being until we go through all the treatment and then able to go back on. And in her head, she was sat there thinking with her father, who's been diagnosed with colon cancer, and the doctor is saying that it's because of too much consumption of red meat, that why would you ever want to recommend this person go off it for just a short period of time until after the treatment and then go back onto it? Wouldn't that lead to the same issues? And you see, the thing what came up there was that she instinctively knew that just doesn't make sense. And actually the same doctor had also recommended some drugs, but had said if they want to get a cheaper version of the drug, it might not be as effective, but they could save a lot of money by getting this other drug that was available from India, actually. And inside she was sat there thinking to herself that, obviously for her it was about the life of her father. So she's thinking to herself, I'll pay, we should pay anything, we shouldn't go for a cheaper version to get a cheaper result when we're talking about the health of her father. And when I was sharing with her, and I was talking to her about some other methods that she should pursue and getting an objective opinion. But one of the key things that I tried to share with her is what I'm talking about today, which is this idea that actually when her father went to the doctor, her father thought that the doctor has all the answers and everything that her doctor says is right, and the doctor would know more about anything to do with his health than he would. And so what she was experiencing was that some things just didn't make sense even on a common sense level, and therefore she was questioning around that and also using the doctor as a guide but not as an overall it's black and white. The second experience that I can share is my own personal experience recently, having at the start of the year been told from my blood test that I had anemia. And I generally don't really work with Western medicine doctors unless I felt that there was something that, like, let's say if I got run over tomorrow and I had broken limbs or I needed serious surgery, the first thing I would want is Western medicine. But because I work from a preventative method I've always worked with naturopaths, functional medicine doctors that look at the root causes. So obviously when I go for my tests, the doctors that I'm speaking to, they know this and they work in this manner. But after 3 months of blood tests where anemia had shown up, they were saying to me, yeah, maybe, you need to consider having more meat because I'm 90% plant-based in my diet. And I was just sat there going, yeah, of course, that's the obvious thing to say when somebody has low iron or anemia. But I knew ultimately for me that I was having some digestive issues that were also linked to me not, really taking ownership of my own self-care in the way that I needed to. And so I knew that was one way, but I knew that there were other ways. And that was because I knew about, what was going on in my life. I knew that the patterns that I were creating, I knew some bad habits had slipped in, all of these things that frankly I probably hadn't shared with the doctor, and therefore the doctor was maybe giving me the best advice that they could. But ultimately it's about how I show up in terms of that conversation and taking responsibility as well for my own health. So this is what I'm talking about in today's topic. It's about how much do you outsource your health to somebody else? When you go to the doctor, how much is it about you telling the doctor about what your symptoms are and what you're experiencing, and then everything that is said to you is concrete, what you've got to do and advice you've got to take? And how much is it what it should be, which is about a relationship, a duo conversation where you share, they give advice and feedback, and you challenge around that wherever you feel that something might not be right for you, and share more if appropriate to almost allow them to give a more conclusive answer. And the reason why this is important is, I would actually say for 3 reasons actually. One is that no one can know your body as well as you do. No one experiences what you're feeling in your body. Nobody's having the same lifestyle, knows everything that's happening in your life right now, what's happening at home, what's happening when you walk into the gym, for example, where you're necessarily feeling all the pain, or even how you describe the pain sometimes isn't as accurate as what it's needed to be able for somebody to be able to experience exactly or know your body as well as what you can. So the idea that you go to somebody else that's a health professional, whether it be a personal trainer, a doctor, or even a coach, and they can just go, right, okay, I know exactly what it is, and be 100% right 100% of the time, is just not accurate. And I read a study recently about in Washington Post, and it was about one of the leading medical clinics in the US where they'd run some surveys, and they found that 20% of patients had been misdiagnosed. And that's not necessarily always about due diligence. It's about actually the fact that when we're talking to a human being about our health, there has to be a two-way responsibility within that conversation. The second thing is there are a lot of stereotypes that happen. So, it's people of a certain age, have certain illnesses, and so sometimes as doctors or health professionals, we group and stereotype people. When you go to a normal doctor's clinic, the way to diagnose is sometimes by grouping certain symptoms into certain areas that require certain drugs, and therefore, if you describe a certain symptoms, you may be given an immediate drug. And these stereotypes sometimes are not helpful when what you have or the health issue that you're experiencing is outside of that stereotype, or potentially rather niche, and therefore could easily be misdiagnosed. And lastly, I think, it's really important that you understand the need for a second opinion, for you to be a bit more objective. So when we go to a health professional and we just outsource our health to them, and we expect the health professional to know everything that's wrong with us without any idea that we might not necessarily have explained ourselves well, or that they just don't experience what we experience in our body, or without getting a second opinion, we're not really being objective. So getting that second opinion just allows us to be a bit more objective in the information that's given to us. So I think, considering that nobody knows our body as well as we can, it's just impossible for them to, that people naturally stereotype in order to be able to diagnose, and to getting a second opinion is really key to us staying objective. Those three things I think can really help shape us to consider that when we are talking to a health professional, we have to show up. We have to show up in that conversation, take responsibility for the fact that our health issue, deep down inside, we know some things are not right. And if we're having a conversation with somebody and something just doesn't seem right, it's our job to challenge, it's our job to get a second opinion, and it's our job to take responsibility ultimately for our own health. So I hope that's helped you just kind of consider some things that you need to prioritize when thinking about your own health goals. As you know, the best way to get advice and shares from me and information is to go over to my website, elikafit.com, sign up for my newsletter there. And if you have any topics or conversations or comments actually on what we've shared today, then please just put it on the comments below. There may be something that you're experiencing as well, or in a story that you might want to share where, had you not been objective, that could have led to a misdiagnosis, or the fact that you are potentially not being objective right now and you are concerned that maybe you've been very black and white with diagnosis that you've been given. So anything you want to share on that, yes, please do comment below. And if you think that this video could also help somebody else that might be in need of a bit more of an objective opinion, then please feel free to share that. But if not, have a great weekend, everybody, and I will be sharing more posts like this soon. Take care.